Hello and welcome to The Business. I'm Trevor Merriden with the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. This week it's all about language and music. For language, we'll be interviewing Clare Suttie. She's a language expert with over 20 years' experience from running Atlas Translations. She started her business in a small room opposite a sex shop, delivering leaflets by bicycle to local businesses. Now she's got 9 employees and hundreds of freelancers working on getting the best possible translation. We'll hear her story. And then there's the music. Clare will be joined on our panel by Susan Heaton-Wright, Managing Director of Viva Live Music and a vocal communications trainer for Executive Voice. One subject we'll be looking at is the rise of the video interview. How do you give an interviewer a sense of your presence when you're not even in the same room? We'll be asking whether a new government initiative designed to build confidence amongst small businesses will actually work. And we'll be hearing from Katrina Sargent, one of the organisers of the 5th Herts Business Expo, about what she has up her sleeve for this year's event. Plus, of course, our usual top tips, light bulb moments and best and worst decisions from the world of business. And we want to hear from your thoughts as well. Our studio number, as always, is 01727 839 926. Twitter at RVTheBusiness. We love to receive your tweets, or email us at thebusiness@radioverulam.com. But first, I'm joined by Clare McAnulty. Clare, good evening.
Good evening.
What have you noticed in the news?
Yeah, well, the story that I noticed is actually an insurance story. Now, as we know, any business, large or small, we have to think about insurance to cover ourselves just in case things go wrong. Most types of insurance you'll need are pretty straightforward and pretty much common sense. But I noticed in the news this week, Sweden's world-famous ice hotel was ordered to install fire alarms despite being constructed entirely of ice.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. The ice hotel that's located in northern Sweden is rebuilt every winter after it melts in the spring. It's constructed entirely from ice, including all the furniture and appliances. Despite this, the hotel was told by the Swedish National Board of Housing that it would need to install the alarms. Hotel spokeswoman Beatrice Carlson said, "We were a little surprised when we found out, but we do understand. Safety is a primary concern for us. There are indeed things that can catch fire, like reindeer skins, the mattresses and the pillows. But bizarrely, soon after the alarm was installed, it was triggered, reportedly by a guest smoking in a cleaning closet." Right. So I guess even when you think you have all the bases covered, you're always best to check.
It's nowhere safe from the march of health and safety. I mean, I would have thought a nice hotel up in up north would be pretty spare, but from it. But yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, I saw. I was fascinated by a story about the internet expansion program gets underway. You think the internet is all pervasive and encompassing, and then what happens? A new generation of generic top-level domains, or TLDs as they're called in the trade, have been announced by the Internet Corporation for assigned names and numbers. So, we used to .co.uk and .com, and there used to be just 22 top-level domains that had been authorised, and so you've got your .coms, your .infos, .nets, .orgs, but now you're going to have things like .shop, .bank. There's one called .porn, but there's all sorts of things alongside your .coms and your .orgs and so on, and they're going to be in Arabic, Chinese. I'm not sure. Will this actually increase the use, or will it just increase the marketing of goods on the internet? I could certainly see how it would expand and perhaps make it a bit more user friendly. But what do you think? Well,
funnily enough, I was trying to find a domain this week, and the domain that everybody wants is the .com. If you've got a company, everybody looks for the .com. But what seems to have happened is that nearly every .com you can think of, somebody's already bought it. Yeah. Not necessarily to use, but to sell it on. So if somebody needs it at some point, they'll pay quite a high premium in order to get the .com. Yeah. So I'm not sure about this, because at the end of the day, there are other things that you can get, obviously .co.uk and all the other ones, but everybody still wants to try and get the .com. Yeah. Because generally, if you go on the internet, by default, you'll always try .com first.
Exactly, but is that just our habit, do you think? Or will we get used to .shop? Or I don't know.
I suppose so. I don't know if it'll help or hinder, but it would be nice to think it would hinder, because it is quite annoying that people buy up, I think they call it cyber squatting, but they actually buy up these domains and with no intention of using them, just to make a profit from them. So it'd be nice to think that it may help that issue.
Well, we've got lots coming up in the show. We've got Clare Suttie from Atlas Translations, as I said, and we'll be right back after this break.
Hi, this is Danny Smith. Join me weekdays from 4 till 7 p.m. for West Harts Drive Time, with features including Chris's Film Club, Pound Saver, Community Notice Board, Calendar Artist, Hot Topics and many more besides. We also feature correspondence covering topics such as lifestyle, consumer advice, cooking, interior design and travel. We have regular interviews, local news and sports, celebrity birthdays, travel and traffic updates and competitions as well. That's all on West Harts Drive Time with me, Danny Smith, on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten.
Has your child outgrown day nursery? Would you like them to attend a more structured environment with a wide range of interesting and challenging activities?
I like cooking stuff with Mrs. Federici.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten in Sandpit Lane is now offering extended sessions, so even if you work, your child can enjoy an outstanding environment that prepares them for school and is somewhere they will want to go to every day.
I like playing games. I love my teachers.
For more, see our website at mountcarmelkindergarten.co.uk. Mount Carmel Kindergarten, private education for little people.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. It's just coming up to 10 past the hour. Really excited to have in our studio two Clares. It's Clare McAnulty, who's going to introduce us to the other Clare.
And not only are there two Clares, but we both spell Clare the same way, so that's quite interesting. I'm with Clare Suttie of Atlas Translations, and obviously the clue is in the title, Clare. But perhaps you can tell me a little bit about your company and about the range of services that you provide.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here, Claire and Trevor.
That's all right.
We started Atlas Translations back in 1991, so a long time ago. And although there is a clue in the name Translations, we do also offer interpreting, voiceover services, market research, brand checking, all sorts of services that are connected with languages. So it's quite a wide range. We started in 91, as I said, which is quite a long time ago, and things were quite different then, so we've adapted over the years. We used to have lots of branches all over the place for people to come in. It was very much before the internet, lots of couriers whizzing around, delivering packages. But now, thanks to the joys of the internet, we've just got our one office in St Albans, and here we are.
And I'm just thinking that of all businesses, yours is probably one which I could see expanding, because a lot of businesses now do a lot of exporting, even if they only export documents, because it's so easy to do if you've got a website. Do you find that you're getting work from not just from local businesses, but via your website and sort of general online?
Yes, I mean, we have customers in Australia, we have customers in Denmark, so we do deal with people on a daily basis from around the world. And it is much easier now to communicate with people. We have a 24-hour telephone interpreting service as well, so I think if a company is planning ahead and has a strategy for marketing overseas, it's not as scary as you might think, and it is easier than it used to be. So you can take very, very small steps just by translating a small section of your website, encouraging people to write to you in different languages and knowing that you can then use a local translator just to find out what they want. And then if you do want to speak to someone, you can use the telephone interpreting service to have a conversation with them and maybe pick up an order, and the phone interpreting service is £1.80 a minute, so it's a very cost-effective way.
And I use Google Analytics on my website, and if you go to your analytics, quite often you notice that people from other countries have visited your website, don't you? I mean, you kind of think, well, why would somebody from wherever, want to be sort of visiting my website in St Albans? But it does seem to be that if they are visiting, wouldn't it be nice if they could maybe
Wouldn't it
understand just a little bit, of what you've got on your website?
So if you're selling light bulbs, people all around the world want to buy light bulbs. So if they're visiting your website from Sweden, why not have just a tiny section of your website that is welcoming Swedish visitors and putting it out there that you're happy to deal with them and provide them with information and prices.
Now, I know this is a bit of a silly question, but if a company does use documents and they have documents in other languages, I mean, how badly does it reflect on that company if they have not got the document properly translated?
Yeah, we do see this, and it highlights the importance of using professional translation services. It's not enough just to speak two languages. The people that we use are professionally trained, and this is what they do as a career. They specialise in particular areas like law. You think about when you buy a house and you read through all your mortgage deeds in English, you barely know what it says. So if you're employing someone to translate those into a different language, they really need to be up on and know about that particular terminology. So that is really important. And Google Translate and there are other automated translation services available. They're really good for getting the gist of things, but also for having a good laugh at where things can go wrong. And clearly, if you want to represent your company, you want to make sure that you're putting as much time and effort into doing that as you probably would do with your English. And that means getting it written professionally, checking it and making sure that there aren't any awful gaffes or even insults or upsetting other cultures. So you have to be really, really careful.
And we've all bought something where there is a very, is usually hilarious instructions that somebody has obviously translated into English. It doesn't quite make sense.
Yes.
And it does give a bad impression, really, of the company. It kind of suggests that they're not terribly professional.
And they're not spending money on their customers in that particular country.
In that country, they don't really care about them quite so much. But one of the things that I did notice that you do a brand checking and research service where you check maybe a name that doesn't really mean very much over here, but it might do in other countries. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that, Claire?
That's right. I mean, if you are introducing a product, it might be a fridge with a name, or a car is a good example. So cars have, Twingo doesn't mean that much particularly, but you want to make sure it's not offensive in any location that you're going to launch it in. And there is a case of the Vauxhall Nova, which was launched in Spain. And Nova means it doesn't go or it doesn't work in Spanish. So
that's not handy, really. That
probably should have been checked before it was released. And they did change the name, but it would have been nice if they'd done that before.
Are there any instances of companies that you've saved from disaster in that way?
Oh,
I mean, you don't have to tell me the names.
I think we have, yes.
Yeah.
And there's also, it's not even just the word. There's also photographs. If you're using images, you need to be sure that you're not going to cause offence in different countries, and we've certainly done that. We've certainly saved companies in that area.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
And actually, images are not the obvious thing, are they really? You wouldn't really think to get them checked.
No, that's right.
But was there not an incident last year with IKEA using different images in one of the countries?
That's right. They'd removed, on the website where they had photographs, they'd removed any images of women. Rather than adapt it for that market, they just airbrushed the ladies out.
Okay, so this was in a country where they thought that it would work better without women in the
or possibly women should be covered, should have their heads covered. So rather than reshoot it, I suppose they did that. And that's another interesting area if you're doing advertisements in different countries. I met somebody recently who helps with hair product advertising, and he was saying he was working on a product for a shampoo that was being launched internationally. And of course, when we see shampoo adverts, it's all about glossy, beautiful shampoos, hair sort of blowing in the wind. But if you're doing that in a country where women generally are covered up, it's all about the smell and.
Of course, I mean you don't think
different
things.
So it's being aware of all of that, and that's where we come in.
So if a business was, say, thinking of exporting, then would the check be wise to check with you first? Names, images,
website addresses, everything.
Website addresses.
We'd look at colours as well. Some numbers are unlucky in different countries, so you wouldn't want to use a number that was unlucky in your company name, for instance.
Now, is there? Do you sort of, when you sign contracts with the people you work with, do you? Are you at risk of? Are there things about if something goes wrong? That could you be sued? And
we could. It's never happened in 22 years.
Yeah.
But we do. We obviously have quality control procedures, and we will recommend all different stages with different people checking, just as you would if you were producing the document in English.
Sure.
So it should go through all the same stages. If the worst happened, we do have professional indemnity insurance, which would cover us for that event, but it has never happened.
Right, okay.
Because we only work with professional translators and interpreters.
Absolutely.
Now, you're based in St Albans, Clare, but obviously you said earlier, for example, you have clients as far away as Australia. And do you find that, say if you take the last 5 years, for example, what sort of changes have you seen? Have you seen more and more local companies wanting to export goods?
Definitely. I think, as I said, the ones that are planning ahead, they are looking to work overseas and deal with overseas companies. So, yes, we're definitely seeing a growth in that area. And I think more people could export, but there is a bit of a worry about languages. People are quite nervous and it's a bit mysterious. They just think, oh, yes, there probably is somebody in Holland who wants to buy my light bulbs, but I don't really know how to go about it. And there are people that can help, like the Department of UK Trade and Industry. They do export communication reviews and they will guide companies through all the different stages.
So would you get some of your business through them? Would you be on a sort of approved list?
Yes, they would recommend. We're members of the Institute of Translation and Interpreting, and they sort of monitor standards in the country, and they would be recommended to anybody who had an export communication review.
Sure.
Now, talking about these small companies, and I suppose if we all just thought a little bit broader, most of us with companies could maybe think of an element of what we do that we could possibly not necessarily export if we're based here, but we can export documents, people can download PDFs, all those kind of things. But I noticed that you're having an open day next Tuesday. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Claire? Because that might let maybe small businesses in the area maybe come along and just get a sort of taster. Sure,
it's actually on Thursday the 21st of November. We are lucky enough to have the Mayor attending as well, so we're really looking forward to it. But we run these open days about twice a year because we like to, a lot of our businesses by phone and email, and we do like to meet people. We feel it helps relationships and we get to know people better that way. So yes, anybody interested in languages, if you're thinking of a career in languages, if you've always been a bit interested in translation, interpreting, do come along. Just let us know first because we need to make sure we have enough cakes and cups of tea.
That's extremely important.
But it runs all day and there's
tell
talks,
us where the location is.
There's talks about social media and all sorts of things. But do contact us if you want the full rundown of the day. And it's on Dagnall Street, Upper Dagnall Street in St Albans, just near WH Smith's. But we can send you out all the details if you drop us a line by email or give us a call tomorrow when we open.
Fantastic. And if you miss that, you can, of course, get in contact with us and we'll pass on those details as well. Best to do it by Twitter @RVTheBusiness. Can I just ask, though, is this your first open day? Or have you sort of had...
No, we've had lots.
Yeah. And so when you see people coming through the door, do you see people who were like you once, that they're sort of one-man bands and they're put, in their cases, they're taking their tentative steps into the export markets, perhaps, or in other ways? Do you see... there's not only a dimension of selling services to them, but there's also a sort of in terms of thinking I was once in your shoes.
No, absolutely. And I think people, it's great that although there's lots of advice available on the internet and you can blog and all sorts of things and read other people's information, but actually it's really nice to meet other people who have been there and done it before. And can tell you that you're going in the right way or make those suggestions. I still gain lots from going out and meeting people as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
as well, on an open day, it means that people can maybe be aware of the different ways they can use getting translations done. And another of your services I noticed was you have a voiceover and a studio recording service. So if somebody's, say, selling a software game, for example, how good would that be to have that in different languages? Because it must be fairly easy to do. Then of course it can be sold off your website to lots of different countries. So again, that might be something people don't really.
I know with the name translations, we still find clients that don't realise we do offer that kind of thing, and they say, oh well, it does. We have voiceover work as well, so it does work to do that.
And how do you see your company expanding? Are you looking to sort of do more internet, online type of translations?
We just want to continue what we're doing, which we do have a reasonably healthy growth. There is a lot going on in translation, and we just want to keep doing what we're doing. We want to work with lots more local businesses. We did move from London last year to be in St Albans, and we love it here. And there's so many businesses around, and we just want to make sure that everyone knows.
Was that a business reason
us.
or a personal reason? You just wanted to move? Is this where you live as well? Or?
It is where I live as
right,
well.
Okay. That's a pretty good reason.
But we talked earlier about how the internet has changed everything. But we opened the London office in 1995, and it was bike couriers coming round, clients coming in. And it got to the point where nobody ever came to see us, and we were sitting in London thinking, why are we here? Yeah. So eventually...
You stopped being there?
We came to St Albans, and we've never looked back. We should have done it years ago.
Yeah. Fantastic.
We could be on the moon,
yes.
but we prefer to be in St Albans.
I'm sure they'll need some translation services on the moon anyway.
Klingon or something. We can help with that.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. Thank you, Claire. You're going to be staying with us for the panel in a little bit.
What you could do, Claire, is give us your website address so that people can, particularly if people want to come to the open day, which I now know is next Thursday, not next Tuesday. If you want to give us your website address.
So it's Atlas, ATLAS, and then a hyphen, translations with an s.co.uk.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Weston.
And I'm Lydia Elcoury.
Join us every Thursday evening on The Parent Show for expert interviews, local information about caring for children in West Hearts,
and a What's On guide you just can't afford to miss. We're here every Thursday between 8 and 9 p.m. on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
Don't forget to tune in!
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
The Solid Gold Music Show on Radio Verulam is with you on Saturday mornings between 9am and 1pm. Join Derek Staines and Stephen Hall as they flash you back, value discs, have a brief biog and interview the stars. We also allow SJH to ramble down nostalgia lane. It's all on the Premier Oldies Show here on 92.6 FM. The Solid Gold Music Show, sponsored by Dockguard of Luton.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
People living with cancer or life-threatening illness can often feel isolated, confused and alone. Grove House in Waverley Road, St Albans leads the way in offering free specialist care and support to patients and their families affected by cancer and life-threatening illness in St Albans, Harpenden and Dacorum. To find out more about their services, or how you can become a volunteer, or make a regular donation, or leave a gift in your will, phone 01727 731 000 or visit grove-house.org.uk.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. It's just coming up to 27 minutes past the hour. We'd love to get your top tips, best and worst decisions, light bulb moments. You know the score by now. Write into us, usually on Twitter at RVTheBusiness, but at thebusiness@radioverulam.com, or give us a call on 01727 839 926, and we'd love to play. Or better still, just send in your clips, as some people have. One person who did that was Chris Burgess. You might remember Chris from an earlier show. He is from a business called the HR Department.co.uk. He's effectively a sort of virtual HR director, so incredibly useful for many small businesses that want an HR director but don't necessarily want one all the time. So he works across many businesses. Clare McAnulty spoke to him, and he sent in his contribution, and we asked Chris, because he worked for lots of companies, why did he decide to take the risk and start his own business in the first place? And interesting answers here.
I think it was something I thought about for a long time. I'd been in HR for over 20 years or so, and I kept thinking to myself, I could do something different. But it was finding the right opportunity to do that and have the comfort of knowing that I had an income, which I guess is the same for any employee, someone who's starting off in business themselves. So I suppose rather fortunately I was made redundant, which gave me that comfort. And so I really felt that there was a gap in the market in terms of HR support for small to medium-sized businesses. Big corporations have their own HR department, but where do the small businesses go for advice? And talking to a few, I found a lot of them were going to solicitors, spending a fortune on solicitors' rates, where actually, they could actually, if they were large enough, they'd have their own HR manager, which is why I decided to do what I do today.
What were the first differences that you found? So obviously you've been in big companies, you've got a big infrastructure, and then all of a sudden you're running your own business. What were the major differences that you found?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that big companies have their infrastructure. I've been in HR for well over 20 years and thought I knew it all. But actually it was quite comfortable in a way, because they do have the infrastructure in place. They've had everything, all the contracts written by solicitors in the past, and they've had plenty of legal advice. Actually, when you start working with small businesses, you'll be surprised about what they haven't got. How they've pinched a contract of employment from their previous employer 25 years ago and think it's still current. So actually, since I've been running my own business, my knowledge of employment law has enhanced amazingly so, because just face different issues that the big corporates don't really.
What would you say has been your best business decision since you started your own business?
My best business decision, I guess, and it took me a long time to work this out, was to do what I'm good at doing and outsource the rest. So, you're starting your own business, you're worried about costs, you try to do everything yourself, you try to do your accounts yourself, you try to do marketing yourself, and you're taking your eye off what you're really good at. And so it took me a long time to appreciate that, but now, I invest my time in what I'm good at, which is HR and employment law, and get others to do the other bits for my business. And
do you dare to tell us what your worst business decision was?
Well, probably taking too long to find out what my best business decision was, really. It took me a good number of years to realise that that's what I need to do. So, yeah, that would be my worst, I guess.
If you were advising somebody who was maybe starting up a business like you're running now, what advice would you give them?
I think you need to have a network. You need to have a very strong support network. That could be people doing the same as you're doing. So if you're starting up an HR business, contact other HR professionals, talk to them, because you can discuss issues with them, you can bounce ideas off them. But not only that, I think you just need to get out there and network. You need to get out there and network with other people. Some of the things that I found in the early days, I'd go to networking meetings, I'd be saying to people, well, what sort of printer do you use for your computer? How do you wire that in? Silly little things like that. But, when you start out fresh, you don't know these things, and there's a lot of free information out there just through networking.
Would there be a light bulb moment for you, so a moment when everything fell into place?
I think probably the light bulb moment for me for my own business development probably is to ask my existing clients if they know someone else that could use our services. Because if they're happy with your services, then they're much more willing to provide you with a reference to another employer. So yeah, that's my light bulb moment.
So that was Chris Burgess from the HR department telling us about his light bulb moments and all manner of other things as well. We're reaching the time for our panel discussion at the moment. We've still got Clare Suttie from Atlas Translations with us. But we're joined by another guest now, Susan Heaton-Wright. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Susan?
Oh, thank you very much for having me here this evening. I have two businesses. One is Viva Live Music, and we organise live entertainment for events. Most of them are business events, and they include product launches, gala dinners, award ceremonies, and some weddings. But also, as a sole trader, I have an organisation called Executive Voice, and I do training in how to use the voice and your physical presence so that you're never ignored.
Right. Okay. God, crikey! I'm not quite sure where to start with that. I mean, so what do you say to? I mean, it's a huge subject. I mean,
yes.
But what's the most common sort of fault, if you like, in the way that people carry themselves when they're talking, or
do you mean by body language or their posture?
Sorry, yes, that's what I mean.
It's really to do with them perhaps having a closed body language, and that affects their voice. So can you hear how my voice has altered?
Yes.
Because I've got tension, and all I've done, for the listeners that obviously can't see me, is that I've just closed my shoulders and made them quite hunched.
Yes.
But if you're on video, which we're going to discuss later on, you can hear that the tone of voice is completely altered. But when people see you, they think, oh gosh, is this person trustworthy?
Yeah.
Would I buy a second-hand car from them? Probably not.
Right. And also you've made me feel very self-conscious now.
Oh, really?
How I'm sort of carrying myself. But as it happens, that it's very close to the subject of our first item for discussion. What an amazing link. Accidental. I wish I'd been clever enough to actually sort of really think of that. But it just so happens that we've organised, we've got it that way. It's kind of about how do you nail a video interview, I suppose. How do you make the best things? I mean, video interviews, you may not have had one, but apparently they're becoming an increasing reality. A recent survey by a workforce consulting firm reported that 18% of applicants participated in a video interview within the past year, more than double in the year prior to that. However, the survey notes that whilst video interviews allow more candidates to get consideration, what it calls the impersonal and unfamiliar medium can put some job applicants at a disadvantage. When you add to things like that so much communication is, as you've been saying, is via the sort of the human face and the sort of manner and bearing, and less is by tone of voice, and then very little is in actually what we say. I mean, as an expert in this area, what do you make of that, Susan?
It's interesting that you quoted Merriden's work on communication with those quotes, the 7%. The actual words, the 38% tone of voice, and 58% body language. Probably haven't gone up to 100%. But that was based on specific work. But that quotation is bandied around all the time. And basically what he was saying was that if you're speaking and your body language and tone don't match what you're saying, then people get confused and they go by what your body language is saying.
Right.
So it's actually quite different to words not being the most important thing in a communication, in a conversation.
So do you think the way it's been reported has affected
I think it's just. I think that it's just a misunderstanding of Merriden's original work.
Right.
And perhaps people thinking, oh, this is quite a good thing to quote. But if we talk about interviews by video, a lot of people are also interviewed by telephone, and there are similar communication challenges in that people can't see you. Although we've got lots of equipment around us, we can have eye contact and we've got a rapport going, which it's very difficult with video. At least with the telephone you can perhaps hear the other person agreeing with what you're saying. And so I think you need to get yourself into another mindset, and perhaps practice on Skype or something like that, where you can imagine the other person and making sure that you have good eye contact with them, even if you can't see them by video, that you imagine them in the same room.
Sure. Sure.
so that you can try and develop that rapport.
Yeah.
Also, am I?
No, that's fine.
The other thing that I found when I've gone into TV studios is that for performers is that normally you're sort of out there and giving the rapport right to the very corners of a room or a stage, but when you've got a camera, you've got to focus on that small area to make sure all of that energy goes into that small area.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I'm now going to try and move over to the left so I can develop eye contact with Claire once again. It's a bit of a crowded studio. I mean, Claire, what did you make of the story, and also Susan's comments as well?
I thought it was really interesting, and I read the whole thing, and it went into how you should think about your background as well. So there were instances of people that had been interviewed, and they were clearly in their bathroom with totally the wrong thing, or they had their camera looking at their noses instead of into their faces, and so you have to be. There's so many things to think about, and we don't actually deal with video interviews particularly. Most of our interviews would be by telephone. But some of the points were pertinent, and I agree with Susan. I think your tone of voice is really important, and making a good impression on the telephone is all part of your job. You really need to be able to phone up and present yourself in a professional way. So I think what Susan does, I think many freelancers from all walks of life, I'm sure, would find it invaluable. Because I get frustrated by people who ring up and they're brilliant, talented, speak 28 languages or whatever, but they just present themselves really poorly, and it's such a shame. So, I'm
fascinated, particularly on Skype, about what people have going on in the background.
I think you forget.
Well, you do, you do, and I run a business from home myself, and I work in what I call the work studio. The kids still call it a shed, but to me it's a work studio. But I've realised recently that people are looking or making comment about what's going on. It is a shed, and so I'm thinking, well, should I have some sort of classy sort of corporate background, or some sort of animated movement of people walking around as if in an office,
rather than having the kids photobombing you.
Oh, they've learned not to come in whilst daddy's working. But it is fascinating, the impression that it can generate, sort of one way or the other, is
and how easily you can be distracted. So if you are interviewing someone, you can't help looking at the background and seeing what's going on around them, as well as listening, hopefully, to what they're saying.
One odd thing I find, particularly in the Skype thing, is that when you are talking to the camera, sometimes it looks as though you're not looking at the camera. A lot of people are sort of looking downwards, apparently. Partly they may be looking downwards, but a lot of the time it's just it doesn't look quite right, does it? It looks like a lot of people who are half awake, sort of talking to each other, almost like their eyelids are sort of down. So I mean that creates sort of odd impressions as well.
I think it does.
It did say something about where you should position your eyes. It wasn't where I would have thought it.
But also, if you've got your screen at a different angle, as you say, it could be a nostril,
or down your top,
or that, or that actually you are looking straight forward, but it does look as though you're looking up to the sky or down at the ground, and so it might be worthwhile doing a sort of pre-run, or very soon after the interview starts, pressing a button, say, oh, it looks as though the screen's gone now. Should we continue? So you can see what I look like. Shall we continue just with the audio?
Yes, what a shame. The screen seems to have gone.
Oh dear.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll come back to our second question for our panel right after this short break.
Wondering what you could do this weekend? Well, you don't have to go far from home. There's plenty to discover on your doorstep. Join me, Ellie O'Fira, this Friday at midday, when we'll be giving you some great ways to get out and about close to home. That's Out and About, Friday at midday, here on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
Join Simon Carver on Fridays from 6:30 p.m. for The Film Guide. We look at the UK cinema box office top 10, a selection of the new cinema releases and the best of the week's films on free-to-air TV. That's Fridays from 6:30 p.m. on West Hart's Drive Time with Danny Smith. exclusively on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
Welcome back to the business. It's just after 22 the hour. We're with our panel, Claire and Susan, here in the studio with me still. The second story is about a new initiative, a government initiative. Nothing new about government initiatives. There's lots of them, but this one's been launched recently to, quotes, encourage small firm growth by buddying up businesses who aspire to grow with those who have actually achieve growth. It's called the Business is Great Britain campaign, and as we say in the media, it's been kick-started by Business Secretary Vince Cable and Skills and Enterprise Minister Matthew Hancock, designed to build confidence amongst small businesses. Lots of case studies of companies already out there doing it. Now, I don't know what you think. It's covering a range of areas. I mean, it's covering to encouraging businesses and the potential of their company, plans for long-term growth, hiring staff, exporting to foreign markets. An area, Claire, that you would be very, very familiar with. I don't know. Am I just getting initiative weary? I feel very cynical about this. But could you sort of de-cynicize me, or do you feel equally cynical about these government initiatives?
Well, I think perhaps it's one area that the government should be involved in, whereas you're probably a bit cynical because of all the areas they step into that perhaps aren't really their areas. But I think the export part is very interesting, and I think generally buddying up successful businesses to help small businesses sounds like a great idea. Whether it will work effectively will obviously remain to be seen, but I looked at a couple of the websites that they mentioned, Brompton Foldable Bikes, for instance, who knew that they sell in 42 different markets around the world. So, and the Tangle Teaser, which you won't have one probably with 3 boys in your house, but we have one in our house. It's brilliant, and that's sold in 52 countries. So it's a really good example of something that you wouldn't imagine that a hairbrush effectively would go around the world and be so successful.
Yes.
And the cider makers, which Weston's, you might think would just be a small producer, and they trade in 40 different countries. So I think that's really interesting, and if they can pass on some information to smaller companies and say, look, you can go out there, do some planning, think about a market overseas that you might want to get into, and we'll help you to do it. And it was interesting looking at their websites, none of them were in different languages, so it wasn't a case that they'd had to go out and spend loads and loads of money getting millions of translations done.
Yeah.
They've done it all through distributors around the world, so there will obviously be translations involved, I'm glad to say, contracts and things like that where they're setting up agreements.
Is there a business opportunity, Claire, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, language services would be a part of it. I'm sure that these companies would pass that along. But yeah, I think that's quite exciting, and anything that encourages. There are 4.8 million small businesses in the country, and only 100,000 of them export.
Is that right?
Yeah, I got that from a nice man at the UK Trade and Investment.
Well, thank you, nice man.
Department.
UK Trade and Investment.
He gave me lots of really fascinating figures
Yeah.
and demonstrated that people are just a bit frightened of exporting. They think, I don't speak the language, I haven't got time. There's going to be all sorts of problems with filling in paperwork and VAT, and they just see it as a big burden. So anything that we can do to encourage them to at least think about it and find out that it's not that difficult has to be seen as a good thing.
Is it? Do you think it's seen as a bit of a burden, Susan?
No, I've actually just completed the Passport to Export scheme with UKTI, and I have to say that my ITA was absolutely wonderful, and I got a lot of really good information, but I actually got most information from another supplier in events who I had a 2-hour Skype session
so
with.
That was your own buddying up.
That was my own independent buddying up with through an events organisation, and it was very specific of the moment information that I received, which UKTI, for the best will in the world, they're not up to date in the sort of niche area that I'm in. And so I think the idea of buddying up is a brilliant idea. My only worry is that too much burden will be put on the company that's more established, and that the younger company, for want of a better word, they might have unrealistic expectations.
I mean, on an individual level, we're seeing growth for a number of mentoring schemes in between individuals in businesses. But I suppose at a business level, you could get a sort of corporate cynicism of, well, what's in it for us, really? I mean, it's not a view that I have, but you could see how some businesses might think, well, is what's in it for us?
Yes. Yeah. And it would involve some resources being directed towards the newer business.
Yeah.
I think possibly that they do need to think that through, but I think in principle it's a great idea.
And it makes all businesses think about what they do.
How far they've come.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think even if you're speaking to a new, fresh business, we have a work placement scheme, and we have students that come and work with us for sort of 3 to 6 months. And we learn loads from them. So I think it is a two-way process.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, brilliant. That's been fantastic, Claire and Susan on our panel this evening. We're going to be back with Katrina Sargent from the Hearts Business Expo right after these announcements.
The Solid Gold Music Show is here on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Join Derek Staines and Stephen Hall for the music and news as they flash you back to decades past between 9 and 10. Yesterday Today updates the news on your favourite stars of yesterday. Or how about one of your children's favourites in Kids Corner just after 11 o'clock? Take part in competitions where we give away CDs, DVDs and vouchers which can be spent in your local stores. And make sure you don't miss out on Stephen's now legendary gripe just before the midday news. The Solid Gold Music Show is sponsored by Dockguard of Luton and we'll be back on Radio Verulam this Saturday between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Radio Verulam Community Partners. Dagnall Street Baptist Church has a welcoming, friendly atmosphere and can be found in the city centre. Regular Sunday services are held at 10:30am and 6:30pm. There are also weekday social meetings, special events and concerts. Our busy, relaxed coffee shop deserves a visit and is open 10 till 2 Monday to Saturday. Our website www.dsbc.org.uk has details of our regular programme and future events, plus the opportunity to download our monthly magazine. We also have a Facebook page where you can catch up on our latest news and chat.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. Well, we've got a very special event coming up soon in the business calendar of Hertfordshire, and I'm hoping that on the line that we have Katrina Sargent. Katrina, are you with us?
I am indeed.
That's always a relief when the person that's supposed to be on the line is on the line. That's wonderful. Katrina, we met this time last year, didn't we, actually, at the Hearts Business Expo, and a really lovely event it is too. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the history of the event and what you're trying to achieve this year?
Well, yes, we're back again at Nebworth Barnes. It's our second event there, but originally we set up Hertfordshire Business Expo back in 2011. Where we launched it in Watford, and we had so many visitors there that we soon outgrew the venue. So we sort of started talking to Nebworth about sort of taking it up there and using their fantastic conference facilities. So back there again this year.
Wonderful. We've also got Clare McAnulty in the studio back with us again. Clare, I gather you've got a few questions as well.
I noticed that you haven't been running for 5 years, Katrina, have you? Is it just that you've had five of the events?
Yeah, originally we were doing them twice a year, but we decided to just do one really massive one once a year and make it as big and as spectacular as possible.
Yeah. And I notice you've got a very interesting headline speaker, Dave Fishwick.
Yeah, Dave Fishwick. He's from the Channel 4 series Bank of Dave. and their secret millions as well. He featured last month actually in the Hertfordshire Business Independent, where we ran an interview with him. It's very motivational and quite inspirational, I think, really, and caused quite a stir in the banking world a couple of years ago.
Can you just tell us roughly how the day is structured? I unfortunately have never been. So is the day structured that you have events during the day, or how's it organised?
Yeah, we actually designed the event so that you can attend from breakfast right through to the end and have lots of things going on, so that you can spend the whole day there. So we've got the breakfast kicks off at 8 o'clock in the morning. We've got Stephen McPartland, the Stevenage MP, going to be there, and that's going to be hosted by Biz for Biz. And then the actual exhibition, which is 70 strong local businesses promoting themselves and stands, that kicks off at 10 o'clock officially. And then we've got 3 seminars running throughout the day at the Business Arena, which is hosted by the Goldsmith Centre. And those 3 seminars are quite diverse. We've got entrepreneurship, grow your business through sales, and cloud technology. So really interesting topics that are current, that people in small businesses would really like to learn more about and sort of engage in, that might not necessarily sort of be actively looking at the moment, and they just want to explore it.
I think that's a really interesting point, because one thing that struck me when I visited last year was the sheer practicality of many of the talks. There was a chap there, Martin Kiepfer from UK. Was it UK Trade and Investment?
Trade and Investment. Yeah.
Who was brilliant. But he just got straight down to nuts and bolts, and in terms of how to. And so many speakers kind of dress up what they know in a sort of magical mystery kind of way, and that you have to come and talk to me much more. But he was very hands-on and practical. But is that the sort of criteria that you're looking for when you choose your speakers?
Yeah, well, we're working with the Goldsmith Centre, who really sort of have some really good, strong training programs. And the idea is that people can actually come and listen to the seminars, which are about half an hour long, and actually come away with stuff that they can actually apply in their business straight away. Like you say, a lot of people use these as, they dress them up in their great big adverts, really, for them to sort of get more business from. But our idea is to actually provide people with good, strong, solid advice from industry leaders, really.
Is it possible then, if you've got the seminars spread throughout the day, then really you can come any time, can you, and probably still attend at least one seminar, so you don't need to allot the entire day to come.
No, you don't have to allot the entire day. Although, however, we do have this year, we've got Hot Office Express, which are going to be hosting a business lounge, so if people do need to go off and do some work, then there's going to be facilities for them to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, you can come any time. There's on our website, we've got the timings of the actual seminars, which run throughout the day, and we're doing speed networking as well at 11 o'clock. Actually, it's 11:15. So yeah, there's lots going on, as well as the exhibition, which is sort of the main part of it, and that's been so successful this year that we've had to open up a second exhibition hall.
Oh, right, okay. We said at the start that it's the 5th one, is that right?
It's the 5th one, but it's only been going since 2011.
Oh, right, okay. So, I mean, but even so, I mean, the world's changed even a lot in quite a short space of time. Are people, in terms of the feedback that you get, to prepare for the next show, are things changing in terms of what people are saying? Are you feeling a sort of, we're always sunny and optimistic on this show about small business a bit locally, but are the topics less about how to survive and cut costs, and more about how to grow and thrive?
I think it's a good mixture of both. But for us, our vision of the expo when we first launched it back in 2011 was to inspire and motivate. And we do try and keep the energy up really high and very positive. A lot of people can talk about the doom and gloom and how hard it is in business at the moment. And yes, we're all aware that, times are tough out there. But it's a mindset, and I think if we can celebrate, especially what we've got locally, there's so much going on, and there's so many inspirational people out there that just need to be able to have the opportunity to show what they do. And I hope that the business of the Hertfordshire Business Expo, gives them an opportunity to sort of platform and showcase themselves.
And I mean, the other thing I would imagine, it would just be a fantastic networking event, because so many people are there. And we all need, particularly when we work and we're in small companies, we all need to go to these kind of things just to give ourselves a boost, to go back to their business and maybe look at it slightly differently. They've made a few contacts and everything else.
It's very lonely out there when you're working on your own.
It's true.
It's nice to be able to talk to people that are in the same boat and have the same challenges that you have, and be able to take advice from people that have been there, seen it and done it. And I think that that's really important in business, to learn from other people as much as possible.
Right, so it's for all you lonely hearts in business out there as well. No, just kidding. But really, I mean, there's a number of reasons to go there. Have you got sort of to hand sort of information about sort of the website and things? It's not too late to register or anything like that?
No, it's not too late to register. Although we've closed breakfast off now, that's sold out, and so is speed networking. But we advise that anybody wants to attend seminars to pre-book those.
Right.
We've got, if you go to our website, which is www.heartsexpo.co.uk, you can register for free there. If you print off your ticket, which we'll email you out, and bring that along, that'll speed you through the registration process. It's really easy to get ahead. We're also quite active on Twitter this year, so we'll be retweeting anybody that's using our hashtag.
Yeah, thanks for the retweets, by the way. We just noticed those, so thank you for that.
That's all right. No, Hearts Expo is our hashtag. Anybody that's exhibiting could engage with people in that audience as well.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant. And I dare say, I mean, just in a few seconds before we finish, the day after the show finishes, I mean, it's kind of a big sigh of relief, I expect, for you.
It is, but you have to do your follow-ups. It's so important. People are so het up about getting the exhibition right and everything. It's what you do after it. That's just an opportunity for introductions.
Right.
And it's really important that people get straight back on it when they get back to the office and do their follow-ups with all the people that they've met and, talked about, and worked hard with for the day.
Brilliant. Okay. Katrina, thank you so much, and look forward to the Hearts Business Expo, everybody.
Thank you very much.
And that's about it for us tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you to Clare McAnulty, Clare Suttie, Susan Heaton-Wright, and of course Katrina Sargent and Graham Burgess from the HR department. That's everything for tonight. Wish you well and see you next time.
You've been listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. If there's anything in the show you want to talk to us about, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.